It's here, guys. I've been sitting on this information for about 3 months, but the remix that I did for Suli is finally out. So run that intro. What's up, gang, and welcome to Inspired By. If you're new to the channel, my name's Will and I make music under Hushchild. This whole series is about looking at the musical trends, past and present, so that you can understand the techniques used so that you guys can make better music. 3 months! At the time of recording this, that's half the time that the UK's been in lockdown. So yeah, I can't really believe it either. I've done an official remix for one of my favourite artists right now, Suli. In today's episode, I want to run you through how I went about making that track. Let's just get things kicked off before Britain goes into a second round of pandemic. Let's learn something. Alright, so the main thing that I have to think about when when you guys are creating a remix is that you want to keep the original character and essence of that song in your remix, but you also want to add elements of yourself so that that translates across to the listener. It was really important for me, because I admire Suli so much, that I kept what was the original character of her song in mind. And for me, that was the vocals. Despite there being an uplifting melody there, there's always a dark connotation with Suli's vocals, at least as I interpret it. So Suli's version of the song starts off with this great arpeggio kind of melody, da-da-da-dum. And then we're followed by this bouncy stepping stone melody as well, ba-bum, ba-ba-bum-bum. And that's the motif for the song, right? So I wanted to create my own motif that still kept that original in mind and still had some of the characteristics of the original song. So what I did was I figured out the key to the song and then just lay the chords down. So instead of da-da-da-dum, da-da-da-da-da-da, what I've got for this version is just those chords. And that's, of course, as always, ran through RC20, a little bit of EQ and Pro Q2 there. So to keep the characteristics of Suli's original song, what I wanted to do was keep a piano there, which would now play chords, and then create a motif of my own with my own sound. So I'm using this noisy perk preset in the operator. And then I played in this over the chords. And that creates that step-in sequence that we had before, going down and coming up and going back down again. I thought of the bass kind of like a double bass in jazz. So it's just playing. It's got that classic walking bass nursery rhyme kind of pattern. In terms of melody, it's pretty much those. Now, of course, some of you are going to be at this video to find out the steps that I took, how this remix ended up coming together, how Suli and I came in contact and all that kind of thing. And I think I'd like to do a video in the future on this specific plugin that I used, but it really all came about because of a plugin called Spleeter. And I'll leave a link to Spleeter in the description below. But essentially what it is an AI design program that is able to create an a cappella for you, as well as stems to a track. And I used Spleeter here, and you can hear the vocals, but you can also hear some noise as well from the rest of the track. That was me messing about with Spleeter. I did it, I think, just this section of the song, and put it out on Instagram, and Suli came right back, and that was when she sent me the stems. So the melody is essentially just the 2 operator presets, and then the grand piano, which again is just a stock Ableton plugin. Occasionally they play some different things, and then the rest of the melody came from Suli. Obviously edited Suli's voice quite a bit. In the beginning here, you get a little introduction. So again, that's that splitter plugin working away with movement on it and loads of reverb and a sidechain compressor. Throughout the track, I'm constantly chopping Suli's vocals. And you've probably already noticed that I've pitched the vocal down 2 semitones. This is how it sounded originally with no plugins. And then I started messing around with splitter. I compressed it, I added EQ, and I added movement, and I pitched it down 2 semitones. Loads and loads and loads of reverb. I originally pitched this down 2 semitones because I thought that eventually I would probably pitch it up an octave. If we left the vocal in its original position and then pitched it up an octave, we get this hugely chipmunk kind of sound. So by pitching it down 2 semitones, it just makes it a little bit more palatable for the listener. Originally, I was going to keep that really, really low in the mix under the main vocal, but I ended up taking it out. But there's just some fun fact for how I went about creating this track. There's loads of vocal chops from Suli in here, which you may or may not have picked up. So normally you would add just a delay. I just wanted to chop the phrase by hand and then just automate it down in the volume. Sometimes it's nicer to just work by hand and get that sound exactly how you want it, rather than working with a delay and perhaps there's some latency there. We've got these pitched down chops as well, which you may or may not be able to hear. They're auto-tuned, pretty much sidechain on every vocal here. So all the vocals together, this is the effect that you get. You really can't hear the pitched octave that much, but I just like that do-do-do-do that it added to the, again, that main motif. When I was creating this, I didn't want to just have verse, chorus, like the original song is. So I liked that there was that loop and it jumps immediately into Sky Says I'm Yours. Here in the UK, growing up, going to clubs and raves and stuff, I was used to the UK garage, grime style of chopping vocals. So if you think about like Heartbroken by T2, the vocal chop is so memorable that you just accept that it doesn't really make sense. And that's kind of what I wanted with this. So I really liked these parts as well. They're slightly out of time, but they just add a little bit of texture to the mix. And I love this higher octave here as well. It's just super, super gorgeous. This actually isn't the finished version of the track that some of you may have heard. I actually took that to Logic and we'll go there afterwards and I'll break down how I changed some of these harmonies as well. So do stick around till the end. Now this is the bit that I'm most proud of. When I listened to the a cappella just on its own, when Sue sent these over, this was something that really stood out to me.
In the woods, I'm not really sure where I'm going. Where's my road?
It was so dark in comparison to where it sat in the original song that I wanted it just as a middle 8 section to really bring that melancholy feel to the forefront.
In the woods, I'm not really sure where I'm going. Where's my road? Feels so lost, oh well, but I'm here now.
And I wanted to underline that last line. I thought it was beautiful.
But I'm here now.
And this is kind of the section where I got a little bit stuck because I was like, it sounds the same as what you've heard before. I'm an audiophile. I love sound design and I love the little nuances that people add to tracks. So I was like, why don't I add a little bit of sound design to this track? At this point, let's jump into Logic and I'll finish up by showing you how I created the sound design for the fishing sound and then take you through my drum selection as well. Quickie ad, if you're enjoying this channel and you want to see more, please do subscribe. Hit that bell icon so you get notified when there's new videos up. I'm so excited to see this family grow. Back to the video. All right, so this is what it looks like in Logic. So when I first made this track, I made a 1-minute clip for Instagram, and I made that in Ableton. Once Sue heard it and she wanted the full version, I created the version that you guys have just seen. When we were creating the final version of the track and we were speaking backwards and forwards and I was mixing it, I knew that there was something missing at the end. So there is one more melody that I've added before we get to the sound design. And it's this lovely Flume-esque chord progression that I've got in Serum. And I don't think that can really be heard in the vocal version of this remix, but I'll play it in its entirety here.
But I'm here now.
So I really loved the idea of having this sound design kind of section in it. The fact that it was dreamlike. When I heard that vocal, feel so lost, oh well, but I'm here now. I thought that was a really reflective lyric. And for whatever reason, it reminded me of fishing. I have never been fishing, but I assume this is what fishermen think. So I did a little bit of sound design, just found sounds from Freesound and some sounds that I'd recorded myself. And I kind of low passed the master track as well, so it sounds like this.
But I'm here now.
And you can kind of hear that low pass take effect and then it ease off at the end. And then we have this huge reverberated clap that I use all of the time, just drench all of our layers in reverb on a separate channel. And I use that in a lot of my tracks because I think it's just really effective of telling the listener, right, this is it, we're going back into the final chorus or the main part of our song. So on that note, let me jump into drum selection. There's actually quite a lot of Foley, as there is in most of my tracks, but you may not have known that there was a shotgun sound. So I've got a shotgun cock-in for, I think, the snare layer, which just sounds like this. And that just plays amongst my snare layers. And you can hear down the bottom here, there's lots of hi-hats and bells and that kind of thing. And they're just chopped really, not randomly, but I guess haphazardly. There's not a lot of, I haven't programmed them in this time. You can see where I've added the fades and I've just found a loop that fit how I wanted it to with the song. And I just left it at that and just copied it up. With my snares and Foley and stuff, all I've got here is, and I think I've comped a rim click with a clock. Nice and easy, nice and simple. Apart from that, we just add a little bit of vinyl noise, which you can get from any blank-sided vinyl. Just record that. I pick a loop, something that's percussive, and I just loop that every 4 bars. And then I pretty much side-chained everything else. Because I mixed a lot of the track in Ableton, there's not loads of plugins running here. So we have some delays. There's basically EQ on most things, a little bit of reverb, our friend R-Bass on the bass channel as per. I've sent some things to buses just for the purposes of reverbs and delays. But for the most part, I troubleshooted everything in Ableton. So it was really only this sound design layer that I was adding here, just automating little bits. And then bouncing this out and into a new project to finalize the master. I hope you found this helpful. If there's any questions you have about the mix that I didn't touch upon, please leave them in the comments below and I'll happily have a conversation with you. I'll speak to you guys soon. That was a bit creepy at the end.
I'll speak to you guys soon.
Thanks. I forgot what I was going to say. So that's how I went about creating this track, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got something from this episode. As always, any of the gear that I use or anything that I've spoken about in the video, as well as my remix and Suli's original track, is listed in the description below. For now, I wish you guys all the best and I'll see you next time.